Welcome back to the channel, everyone. How you doing? I hope you guys are having a great day today. This is a book review of Penpal. So I had no knowledge what this book was called, or just no knowledge of this book at all until I watched the podcast called Creepcast from one of my favorite guys is Papa Meat or Meat Canyon, and then you got Wendigoon, who also I like to watch once in a while. And they did a whole podcast episode about this. They were like reading it. I didn't know it was actually like a book, and this was a creepypasta, which is just like little creepy stories on the internet back in the early 2000s and even the mid 2010s. A lot of you guys that are millennials will probably know what I'm talking about. Shout out to that. And I really liked the story of Penpal from them. And I was like, I wonder how different the book is from what they were reading. And honestly, there wasn't much difference. There was just a little more added to each part. I was so invested into Penpal. I forgot how much I really liked this. I listened to their podcast probably a couple months ago when it came out. And then I never did anything after. So then I was like, all right, we'll check out Penpal. And I just decided to read it. And I'm really glad I did. I gave it a 5 out of 5 stars. I'm just going to put that off right off the bat. But this book is about the narrator revisiting his life, his early childhood, and just like trauma of slowly reawakening what happened to him in the past. And while you're reading this, you actually don't know his name, which is perfectly fine. In the book, this lady called Mrs. Maggie calls him Chris. So if I refer to him, I might just refer to him as Chris. But you are slowly learning these little small things in this book about basically a stalker. This stalker finds Chris and he essentially just falls in love with Chris. And it's so weird because in this book you meet Chris at like 6 years old and you go all the way until he's 15. And there's 5 parts in this book. I'm sorry. There's 6 parts in this book where each part there's like little things that are happening to Chris and his friend Josh. And at the end of the book you figure out what actually was going on. And it's so disturbing. And you know, like in the beginning part of this book, you know it's already just weird. He does very good job of foreshadowing things that will happen. And it almost just makes you so uncomfortable that if you read it for the first time without listening to the podcast or anything, and you read it on your own or you listen to it on your own, the ending really is good. Like, oh man, the spoiler of the ending just blew my mind. The first time I was like listening to it, I was like, whoa. It gave me such a haunting chill that I just felt so uncomfortable. And I was like, this is what I wanted. I needed this. But with this story, I think the best parts about it is the elements of writing kids. I think a lot of people, like myself, struggle with writing children. I have a hard time writing about kids, especially young kids. Teenagers are fine, but like when it comes to young kids, I think a lot of people just don't know how to write young kids. The author, Dathan, does such a good job at writing the main character and his friend Josh in this book that it was so believable that they were kids. A lot of innocence in this book for children that I think a lot of people just miss at writing for children is your innocence of a child. That I think people just kind of forget that how innocent children are truly. And I think the author did such a great job in this book of writing the main character of just being innocent. He would do things in this book where he was like, oh, I can't do this because of my mom. She'll get really mad at me. Even though he didn't do anything wrong in that scenario. But in his head, he's like, oh, mom's going to be so mad. Because as a kid, the worst case is going to happen is your mother is going to be mad at you. Your father's going to be mad. Your parents are going to be mad at you. And with this book, that's kind of how it's been edged in your head throughout the whole book as a child. Is there's something bizarre happening, but to him, the worst case is his mom is going to be mad. Even though through his book, his mom is doing a lot of things to shelter him from what is truly happening. And I don't want to go into spoilers of the creepiness because it would just take away everything. Because this book is broken up into, like I said, 6 parts. Each part has a creepy thing that leads to it that I really think was done so well that you just get really immersed with the character. And with this book, it kind of, there's one part where he's like 6, and then another part where he's like 15, and then another part he's like 10. So, but it just bounces to stories of him when he was younger. And then the last part is when he's an adult and he talks about what happened. Like I said, I think the innocence of this, and I also like the bond of friendship through this book. You can really feel like, oh, Josh and the main character are really good friends. Like it feels so organic, so real. And there's a little bit of me that as a kid when I was growing up, I have a best friend and him and I have been friends since we were 6. We're still friends now too. Like it's beautiful. It made me reminisce about some of the things that they did in this book that my friend and I would do about playing in the woods, trying to build maps, trying to do rafts and trying to figure out all these cool, crazy adventures when you would go to the woods and just try to figure out, oh, how far is the woods and all this. Like, a lot of the child parts of this book is so good and so reminiscent of how when I was a kid that I genuinely enjoyed this book to that level. I didn't think I was going to enjoy it that much, especially after listening to it from Wendigoon and Papa Meat. Reading this instead was actually very fun as well, and I just didn't expect to enjoy this book as much. Now, for, I guess, negatives going into this book, like I said, I gave this a 5 out of 5 stars because I thought this book was really good. I think the pacing was really good. I think there was just a couple elements where the author would dive into maybe like 10 pages of like this backstory, which I felt like it was like, all right, come on. But it would lead to what is actually going to happen. So to me, at first I was like, oh, I don't really like this. I'm like, is this going to affect the rating of the book? But it never did, because on face value, I always thought it would take me out of the book, but it never did. And I actually really enjoyed that element. But I think from a negative point would be there was some parts where it was like 10 pages of just a slow burn that I actually feel like it could have been cut and it wouldn't have affected the story at all, because like I said, when I listened to the podcast, I don't remember them actually saying any of this, so I felt like it was added in the novel compared to just what it was on Reddit. But I really did enjoy the story. I think it was a great story. Would I recommend to everyone? Yeah, I think this is a book I would recommend to just about anyone that's wanting into some creepy books. That's about it. It's just a creepy book, and if you are into that creepy element book, then yeah, I think you should definitely check this out. Would I reread it again? No, because like I said, I listened to it on the podcast and then I read it myself, so I have no desire of doing a reread of it. I really did enjoy it. 5 out of 5 stars, which has been awesome. Like, the second half of this year for books have been amazing. Like, a lot of books I've been reading that isn't for like a big video have just been bangers, and I'm really happy with going into this thinking, wow, these books are actually like really good. I'm actually enjoying these books, and it's making me happy with my enjoyment, because I know the first half of the year I was like, oh man, these books are rough, but this half, ooh yeah, I'm killing it. If you guys made it to the end of the video, I do appreciate it. Make sure you guys go check out all my socials down below, and let me know if you guys have read Penpal, or have you guys read any other creepypastas that maybe I should check out. I do plan on reading Slender Man in October, and then I want to read Stolen Tongue as well. And if you guys have any more creepypasta recommendations that are published, I will definitely read them. As long as they're good, I'll read them. And last but not least, I just want to say, stay safe, stay hungry, and tell someone you love them. I'll see you guys in the next video. Stay weird.